Welcome to the online LPI tutorial where I help you better understand the Leadership Practices Inventory and how you can use it as a tool in your personal leadership development. The Leadership Practices Inventory is a comprehensive leadership development tool designed to help students measure leadership behaviors and enable students to take action to improve their effectiveness as a leader. It is a 30-item assessment, and it measures frequency of specific leadership behaviors that are based on 5 practices of exemplary leadership, which you can see here. We'll get into those more later. The assessment provides for self-measurement, but the greater value is in using the observer feature. The LPI collects valuable feedback from other people who you asked to take the assessment on your behalf. These are people who have direct experience in observing you in whatever leadership capacity you engage in. And it only takes about 15 minutes to complete. The LPI that you're taking is actually designed for students. It's designed for you. In OLSO, we believe every UNCG student is going to be called upon to lead. The real question is, will you be ready when you're called? The LPI is designed to help you develop and enhance a personal philosophy of leadership that is going to guide you, your actions, and your behaviors as you move forward. You heard me mention observers, and as far as your observers go, you should ask at least 5 people to complete the assessment on your behalf. In reality, this means you're probably going to have to ask 8, 10, maybe even 12 people to participate, because you want to cover your bases to make up for the people who, for whatever reason, aren't able to complete it. You should choose people that you've had a direct experience with, people who have observed you in your leadership capacity. And you want to ask people from all different levels. You want to ask your coaches, professors, supervisors, managers, but you also want to ask your peers, your teammates, your club members, and coworkers. You can also ask people that you've had the privilege of supervising or managing. It's a really good idea to send an email requesting people take the assessment on your behalf. When you do this, you let them know that their feedback will be completely anonymous. Let them know it only takes 15 minutes to complete, and make sure you take the time to explain what you're hoping to get out of the experience. You should also let your observers know that they'll receive a link to the assessment directly from LPI notifications. It's not something that will come from you. The LPI is not like a lot of the other assessments that are out there. It's not about your attitudes or your intentions. This is about your actual behaviors. The statements are written as very specific behavior-based statements. Each one asks you about a leadership behavior and how often you're engaging in that behavior. This is assessed on a 5-point scale ranging from 1, which is rarely or seldom, to 5, which is frequently or almost always. Clearly you can see that it might be a little subjective. What's the difference, say, between once in a while and sometimes? Well, that depends on the person answering. So regardless of whether it's you or one of your observers, don't get too caught up in the 5-point scale. Notice that there is no NA or does not apply response. That's because in a measure of frequency, NA is not really relevant. That being said, you should make sure to choose observers who have actually seen you in action. You don't want to ask people who have never had the chance to observe you exhibiting some of these behaviors. I already mentioned the 5 practices of exemplary leadership. It's really important that you understand how these practices kind of define the categories of behaviors that you're going to be asked about. Modeling the way relates to clarifying values and leading by example. Inspiring a shared vision involves envisioning the future and enlisting the support of others. Challenging the process involves searching for opportunities, experimenting, and learning from your mistakes. Enabling others to act involves fostering collaboration and strengthening the work you're doing with others. Encouraging the heart is just like it sounds. It involves recognizing contributions of others and celebrating values and victories. These probably sound familiar, and they should, because each of UNCG's 8 core competencies of leadership fall within these 5 practices. This is one of the ways where you're really going to start to see the building that's happening between the work that you did in bronze and the work that you'll be doing in silver. What it all comes down to is building in your development in the 8 core competencies. You want to view your LPI as a tool to help you do that. Now that you understand a little bit more about the LPI, it's really important to realize how you should look at your results. You want to recognize the LPI is not a judgment of how well you are performing or functioning. It's really more of a collection of observations about how often you're engaging in specific behaviors. More importantly, it really speaks to how often you're seen engaging in these behaviors and practices. And that's where the observer piece is so important. Keep in mind that this is a developmental tool. It is supposed to help you and aid in your growth. It is not a test score, and it is not a judgment of your abilities. What matters the most is not the results that you get back, but it's what you do after you see those results. How do you take it and use it to help you develop and grow? As you're considering all this, I want to address some questions that you might be asking yourself. Are there right answers to the LPI? Well, the truth is there are no universal right answers when it comes to leadership. I can't tell you that there are right answers, but I can tell you that engaging in these 5 practices is definitely going to add to your effectiveness as a leader. Should your responses match with the responses from your observers? Well, generally the answer to this is yes, but there is definitely room for understandable exceptions. These are things that you might want to discuss with your coach when you get your results back. Can you really change your leadership behavior? Heck yeah, friends! Leadership is a skill. Like any other skill, it means that your motivation, your dedication to improve, using feedback, practicing, and especially getting coaching, these are the things that are going to bring improvement. These are the things that are going to help you change the way that you lead. You might also be asking yourself questions about how to use the LPI. What behaviors can you do more often that are going to help you be more successful as a leader? And how can you best demonstrate these behaviors when you're working with others? These are definitely the questions that you want to be discussing with your coach. Speaking of your coach, one of the things that you'll do while working with him or her is to develop a leadership development plan. And this is going to look different for everyone, but you can use the LPI as a framework to help you develop routine practice opportunities. You can also use it to help point you towards specific practices to strengthen and grow in. And you can use it as a resource of actions that you can take and work toward. It's also a great starting point for the work that you'll do with your coach, and that's why we ask you to complete it before you do your second coaching session. Now it's time to get to the nitty-gritty, how to read the results in your LPI. Once you finish taking the LPI and at least 5 people have observed you, I will email you a copy of the assessment. The first thing that you're going to see in the assessment feedback is the 5 practices data summary page, just like you see here. On this page, you can see how your responses literally add up. There are 6 behavioral statements in each of the 5 practices categories. That means that you can score anywhere from a 6 to a 30 for each practice overall. The self column is based on your responses, and the observer's average column is based on the average from all the observers. You can see that the observers' responses are also listed individually and that they're done anonymously. All you see is 01, 02, 03. Those are your observers, but you don't know who replied how. So if you look at modeling the way, the first practice, you can see that this person scored themselves at a 23. So based on the 6 behaviors and a possible score of 30, this person feels like they're showing up at about a 23. When you look at the observer's average for the same practice, it's a 22.6, which is pretty in line with the way that this person is viewing herself. When you look at the individual observers, you can see that the scores range from 19 to 27. So the more observers that you have, the more accurate the results are likely to be, as you'll have more numbers, more data to use in creating these averages. Another way to look at the same information is in my favorite, the bar graph. This is a lot less math. Though this page doesn't include the individual observer scores, it does show you the observer's average as compared to your personal responses. The self is listed as blue and your observer's average are listed as red. And it goes this way for each overall practice. So at a glance, by looking at this page, you can see that things are pretty lined up, but there are small gaps in a couple of the practices. If you look at Inspire a Shared Vision, this person saw themselves showing up overall at about a 26, where the observer average is 24.1. If you look down at Encourage the Heart, you can see that this person gave herself a 22, where her observers gave her an average of 24.7. These gaps, although small, might be something that you can bring up with your coach, who can help you kind of understand and process through them. Each practice is going to have an individual data summary page that will look like this. This one is specifically about the Inspiring a Shared Vision practice. It has each of the 6 behaviors listed, what the person scores themselves as, the observer's average, and then the individual observer scores. And you can see observer data is anonymous throughout the entire assessment. This is how you break down each specific behavior in each specific category. And you'll see it this way in a data summary and as the bar graph. One of my favorite ways to look at the data in the LPI is through the leadership behavior ranking, which is this page. It's a little different, but it offers responses for each specific behavior. It's ranked by what your observers report seeing you do the most often at the top to the least often at the bottom. It also includes your personal responses so that you can compare the two. If there's an asterisk on your page, it will mean that there's a difference between yourself and your observer score that's greater than 1.5. What I especially like about this page is that it's an easy way to identify patterns. For example, if you look in the most frequently section at the top, you see that a lot of the categories that show up are enabling others and encouraging the heart. These are the practices that this person seems to be really engaging in quite often. When you look toward the bottom at the least frequent categories, you see that modeling the way and challenging the process show up. This would be a great conversation to have with your coach about how you might work towards setting goals about how to challenge more and how to model behavior more. It's going to look different for everyone, but again, as long as you're taking something from this data that's going to help you grow and develop, you have completed what we're asking you to do. The last page of your results includes a percentile ranking like this. This is really the same data we've been looking at. It's just in comparison to the 100,000 plus students who have also taken the LPI. The blue line shows where your responses put you, and the red line shows where your observers are seeing you. The difference here and the other data that we've looked at is that these responses in this form are compared to other students who have taken the LPI. For example, look at the response for enabling others to act. Both the individual and her observers put her at the 65th percentile. This means that 65% of other LPI student takers put themselves at or below the same place that she does and her observers. Believe it or not, that's it. That is all the data that you're going to be looking at and processing and discussing with your coach. If you need more help understanding your LPI, you can check out the Student LPI Guide, which is available to you through the LPI website, and something that I shared with you through Google Drive. If you still have questions, you can email me or talk to your coach about them. But now I hope you have a more clear understanding of what the LPI is, how to understand the assessment and your results, and how you might want to use this information to help you inform your personal leadership development. Thanks for listening and watching, and I wish you the best as you move forward in your leadership journey.